the a-hole for not wanting to take care of a child? Me, 27 female, and my brother, 31 male, had a very different relationship with our father. He was abusive and left the family when I was 10. Until he passed, I've seen him maybe 5 times in total. Each time was very difficult, and eventually I broke contact. My brother, however, adored that man. He was very keen on keeping contact. He moved to the same city and visited him all the time. And when our father started a new family and had another daughter, my brother was there every single weekend, the last 14 years. He was part of the family. They also supported him financially, whilst I often juggled 3 jobs at once in order to survive. I wouldn't get a call, not even for my birthday. And when I ever asked for aid, they basically shut the door in front of my face. When our father passed away, I was living abroad. I was only informed by my brother. When no one could come up spontaneously with the money for the funeral, I covered it. No one ever said thank you. All belongings of my father went to his new wife and daughter. They agreed that we could have some personal stuff, but only if it was not of value. My brother offered to put a few pieces aside for me since I couldn't come due to COVID restrictions. I haven't received those things until today, and as soon as the funeral was over, the wife blocked me and everything, even on her daughter's phone. My brother said she was afraid that I was after her money. Now, 2 years later, the mom has some medical issues, so the daughter is supposed to stay at my brother's place for 8 weeks. But he's overwhelmed with it, and so he wanted to send her to me. I told him that she could come for a long weekend to see how it goes. But that I felt uncomfortable with it, because after all, I don't know this child. But he insisted she should come for 2 weeks because him and his girlfriend would be in desperate need of holidays. When I told him no, he got angry. He said, "Oh, so you would claim our father's inheritance, the pieces I never received, but then dip when responsibilities come your way?" He said I'm still part of the family and that means that I should also take care of them. That I should be grateful for having him as a brother because he's taking care of a child, basically also for me. He said he never expect me to be someone to turn down a child in need, and if this stressful phase would affect his relationship negatively, he would blame me for it. Ever since, he ignores me. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be involved here? Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. Why the heck are you still involved in that family? Why the hell did you pay for the funeral? Why the hell would you even consider to take care of that child while she's literally nothing to you? They treat you like trash and use you whenever they see fit. You are not a-hole. You wouldn't even be if you ignore all of them. Also, if you let her stay with you for the weekend, warn your brother that if he doesn't appear to pick her up on time, you will call the police for abandonment. Just so he doesn't get the bright idea to go on vacation with a girlfriend and leave her with you for 2 weeks. Send an SMS so you have it in writing, OP. Not a-hole. Don't even let her come in the first place. Not a-hole. Do not let that child near your home. She will, without a doubt, be left there for however long her mother is sick, and your brother and his girlfriend feel like they need a holiday. The more you give, the more these people will take, and that is guaranteed. OP, I very much suggest saving yourself the time, energy, and heartache and cut them off now, before they give you a very good and very painful reason to do so. Now for the mini update. Having this thread out for a bit, reading all the messages, first made me cry, because I've never received so much reassurance. And then it made me angry, because reading the story over and over again showed me why I got away from that family, and why I should keep it that way. I am in therapy and I am healing. This is why I set boundaries for the first time now. And maybe it's normal that they go crazy about it, because they benefited from me being a pushover in the past. And these pushover tendencies are still there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, asking for reassurance. But I'm getting there, slowly. This is my first post on here, and I didn't expect it to turn out to be such a supportive and helpful experience. Thank you everyone for all the answers. Growing up in an abusive system, I'm having a really difficult time standing up for myself and telling people no. Also, to identify what is my responsibility and what isn't, especially when I'm used to strong backlash. Obviously, whenever we had a disagreement, I was clearly in the wrong in their eyes. So, it's really important for me to receive this feedback from strangers. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my sister's wedding? To start, I'll say that my parents are already offering to chip in for her. They didn't chip in for me. Even though they offered, I rejected them, as my husband paid for the entire thing. He's very wealthy, and so are his side of the family. So it was a very big, extravagant wedding. My sister was one of the bridesmaids, and I paid for her bridesmaid dress and paid for everything. I spent hours organizing my wedding and spent a lot of money and organization to make it the best day ever. My sister helped me with the hen weekend, a little with organization, and not financially. My best friend and maid of honor helped me the most with everything. Anyways, my sister now is getting married and she wants my husband to pay for it. It's 22,000 pounds that she wants us to pay for. We told her that's ridiculous and she should try to pay for her own wedding or get our parents' help. She then got angry at me saying my wedding was 1,000 times more expensive and that I had the money and wasn't being fair. Her friends and her husband have been saying that we are snobby and treat them badly and won't pay anything towards their wedding, when my sister helped out so much with mine. I've even gotten messages off some of her friends calling me an awful person. Someone even said that apparently she married her husband for the right reasons and not for money, which really upset me. I don't know if there was anything I could do or if I'm in the wrong for refusing that. I had the money and wasn't being fair. She should have landed a richer husband. Block her friends from your phone, email, and social media. They had no business bad-mouthing you. Not a-hole. You and your husband don't owe her anything. I don't want to cut her off because I love her and she's family. It's very difficult. I didn't say cut her off. I said cut off her friends. They get zero saying any of this. I've already blocked the ones that messaged me. Not a-hole. Having a big, expensive wedding isn't a necessity. If your sister wants one, then she should be able to pay for it herself. The fact that her friends and husband are bad-mouthing you as well is nasty. Not a-hole. I agree it's downright nasty of her friends to text you calling you names. And she's the one bad-mouthing you to them. She's an entitled mean girl. It's good you blocked her friends, but I'd want to unblock and reply, how dare you text this? Do not contact me again, and block them again. I would also want to tell my sister to stop being violent money grabbing, to tell her friends to stop the nastiness or she and I will fall out. Not a-hole, it's her wedding. Her partner and parents should finance it. To your sister, I will say that weddings that cost less come also with a lower rate of divorces. Wow, no way. I'll say that to her, but I feel it might upset my husband. Haha. Inform her that neither you nor your husband birthed her nor her future husband, and as such, you are not responsible for her expenses. Also, if she isn't a freaking adult taking responsibility for her own life, she shouldn't get married. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for moving my girlfriend back in against my kids' and therapist's wishes? I'm a widower with 2 kids. My daughter is 18 and my son is 19. Both are in community college and living at home. I've been widowed for 2 years, and my girlfriend has been living with us since June of last year. My girlfriend, 27 female, is a beautiful, passionate, and intelligent person. She's also creative and passionate in the way my late wife was never. Exceptionally charming in her good days. However, she is also troubled and that has rendered her unable to keep a steady job. She has no trouble landing jobs, but she'd only stay an average of 2 weeks. She is highly reactive to the thought of abandonment, and no matter how much love I give her, it's like she takes my actions and words and twists them into something sinister and then reacts to it. Which means yelling, calling friends and telling them lies about me, talking about me as if I'm not present to my kids. I've lost friends over her behavior because she'd have days where she'd show up and refuse to talk to anybody because she felt rejected by something. Even left bad reviews on a mutual friend's business because she accused us of seeing each other. We were not even in the same state during that supposed time period. She has had trauma that has made her paranoid. That has devolved into her feeling like she's being followed to and from work, so she quits. I let her contract 2 security companies for our house, but she still feels followed and just sits monitoring the cameras. She also obsessively searches every bag in the house for trackers and dumps out groceries because she feared tampering. This paranoia has resulted in her ending up in court because she's confronted innocent people accusing them of following her. I made a decision to put her in therapy and she just got out of a voluntary inpatient program. The family therapist approved of my decision to rent a condo for her while she continues therapy. The condo has 24/7 security, and I visit her often. However, I miss her and want her back in my house. This isn't some fling. I want a future with her. And I saw that my daughter had texted my girlfriend saying, "I know you are a good person. Keep up the good work." So I thought despite them having conflict with my girlfriend, my kids would be willing to welcome her back. So yesterday, while my kids were celebrating the 4th, I helped move my girlfriend's stuff back in. However, when my kids got home, they both sprinted to my daughter's room and whispered for half an hour. Then they came down when my girlfriend went to get takeout and said they cannot believe I'd let her back, especially before the therapist says she's stable. I defended myself, saying I thought they said she was an intelligent, good person. They said that she means well, but so many things she's done are wrong and hard to forgive. I told them we needed to be there for her and not give up, and they said they will not forget this, and there's worse things than loneliness. Am I the a-hole? She's never physically threatened my kids. Now for the comments. YTA, YTA, YTA. I'm actually lost for words at this level of foolishness. The fact that he waited until the kids were out to move her back in implies he knew they were not on board with this and still did it. You're the a-hole, and it is going to cost you your relationship with your kids. Parents being stupid. I can do what I want. Parents in a few decades when they are dying. Why don't my kids want to see me? What's crazy to me is he doesn't seem to care if she's mentally ill or possibly on drugs. He just wants her regardless. And I wouldn't imagine the best thing would be for a mentally ill person receiving conflicting treatment from all parties involved. Like, why is he going against the therapist and family when they obviously agree on the point? The fact that you ended your post about your clinically unstable girlfriend with, "She's never physically threatened my kids," should be a giant red flag that this isn't normal or acceptable. I would not blame your kids one bit if they go low contact/no contact with you over this. You are choosing an F-buddy over the safety and well-being of your children. You're the a-hole, majorly. Saw one message from his daughter wishing OP's girlfriend to keep up the good work and automatically assumed she could move back in. Not to mention, never physically threatened means OP's girlfriend has threatened them before. He's so blinded by love that he doesn't see that he's not only putting his kids at risk, but his girlfriend too, if she regresses back into her paranoia. I don't think he is blinded by love. I think it's more about her being more creative and passionate than his late wife ever was. She's 27, his youngest is 18. She's unstable. I guess passion and creativity will win over your kids' concerns and well-being. You're the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole? My sister, 31, got upset with me, female 27, for a comment I made about her husband. My sister recently became a new mom, and she's been married for almost 2 years now. We have a good relationship as siblings and friends, and I also get along well with her husband, despite not knowing him too well. One morning, my sister and I were playing with her son on my bed, and I noticed how calm he became when she hugged him. We had a light-hearted conversation about cuddling, where she mentioned her husband's concern about cuddling the baby too much would make him soft. I expressed my belief that cuddles make kids feel secure and happy, and to not let her husband dictate cuddle rules. However, my sister unexpectedly snapped at me, feeling that I had insinuated something negative about her husband. I was taken aback because I thought we were having some banter. I knew her husband wasn't serious about his comment. She then said she wishes she hadn't discussed the topic with me. This is the 3rd time she snapped at me during her visit for context. I normally apologize, but this time I could tell she was triggered by my words and told me off. So I decided to take some time alone to think things through. Later, my sister confronted me about crossing a boundary by making that comment. I explained that I never intended to insult her husband or be rude, but rather I wanted my nephew to feel loved. However, she insisted that I had crossed a line and accused me of not respecting other people's boundaries while enforcing my own. She went as far as saying, "You have no right to tell me what to do." This made me so angry. So in order to regain composure, I simply said, "Okay," and asked her to leave my room. Our conversation ended abruptly, and we didn't speak for the rest of the day. The next day, I offered her a cup of coffee as a peace offering, as I believe she had misunderstood my intentions and reacted strongly. However, she expressed discomfort being at our house and left to house sit for a relative, which made my mom cry. I don't believe my comment was that offensive, and it seems like the situation has been blown out of proportion. I'm unsure if I am the one at fault here. Am I the a-hole? The making them soft comment was a yellow flag, but her reaction to you is a red flag. Abuse? Unfortunately, you have no power here. Do what you can to maintain the communication channel. She may suddenly need you later. Not the a-hole. No abuse. She's an excellent mother and I think her husband is a sweetheart. I agree. I can't really do anything without groveling, and I don't want to apologize to her every single time she gets her knickers in a twist. She's a new mom. Her hormones are all over the place, and she's probably hardly slept. She's defensive of everything because her body is running on pure adrenaline. I remember those early months. If she's not usually like this, try to let moments of irrational upset go, if you can. But up to a point, because anger, sometimes blinding rage, is actually one of the first and strongest symptoms of PPD in many women. Your sister might need help from a doctor. Keep an eye on her. Give her grace and remind her of your patience when you have your own. You're right, I didn't know postpartum was such a hellscape. I feel quite bad for not being clued up on this. I'm not planning on having kids, so I never really thought I needed to know about all of that carnage. Your comment was innocent and she seems to have taken it wrong. Perhaps this is a subject that she has dealt with before with others, and you're getting the brunt of her response? That's unclear, but what is clear is that she's overreacting to what you said. I would probably tell her that she misunderstood where you were coming from, but you will keep your opinions to yourself in the future. Not a-hole. Thank you for this advice. I know she has felt like people walk all over her in the past or meddle in her business. We talk about this and support each other. I never ask her anything personal about her marriage, and I have said to that I will only ask, how is the marriage going? Once a month, and wait for it to be like, it's going good, and leave it there. I will definitely keep my opinions to myself in the future. It is clear it is a touchy subject. I'm just annoyed that she left, because now I can't even work towards a solution with her. It feels so weird. Am I the a-hole for ruining my brother's proposal and refusing to clear his name until he gives me half the money for my wedding? I, 35 male, admit to being a spiteful person when pushed, but I want to know if I'm truly the a-hole when I gave multiple and explicit warnings as to deter my vengeance. I have a younger brother, Todd, 29 male, who had a complicated birth and had to stay a month in the ICU. And because of that, my parents have always doted on him and almost denied him nothing, even if it was to the detriment of my sister Abby, 32 female, and I. My brother drinks in on the attention, and has on more than one occasion made himself the center of attention at either my sister's, or a cousin's special event. Because of this, Abby and I have a strained relationship with Todd and our parents. Unfortunately, Todd met and fell in love with Lucy, 24 female, who announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower my mom held for Abby. When I proposed to my wife Michelle, 30 female, I just wanted to elope, but she really wanted her family to be there, so I invited my family out of obligation. While out, my best man Jim, 35 male, noticed a receipt from a jewelry store slipped out of Todd's pocket. Jim confronted Todd about this, which led to an argument. Jim told me everything, and I told Todd that he was no longer going to be a groomsman because I knew he was going to propose at my wedding. Todd cried to our parents, which led to a blowout. In my parents' eyes, since Todd never admitted that he was going to propose to Lucy at my wedding, I was unfairly judging him. I refused and brought up Todd's past behavior. My parents couldn't refute this and got Todd to agree to not try anything at my wedding. This wasn't enough to convince me to let him be a groomsman, but I warned him that if, as a guest, he'd try anything, I would make him regret it. Fast forward to the wedding, and surprise, surprise, Todd walked over to Lucy and proposed to her during Michelle's father-daughter dance, and did it in a way so that everyone would notice. Cue my revenge. Jim and I had hired a woman to pretend to be Todd's side piece who cornered Todd and Lucy, and claimed that she was pregnant with his baby. Todd denied this, but when she called his phone, as I gave his number and messed with Todd's phone to incriminate him, it didn't look good. Lucy threw the ring back at Todd and left in tears. When Todd saw the smile on my face, he knew that it was me, and I didn't respond to a single call/text from him or my parents until after the honeymoon. Lucy has thrown Todd's stuff out and has been denying access to their kid. Todd is furious and is demanding that I clear his name. I sent him a text saying that I had no idea what he was talking about, as well as a screenshot of a bill for the wedding, and gave a vague message demanding reimbursement for half of the wedding costs. Michelle knew the whole time what I was planning and gave me the green light after Todd ruined her moment with her dad, so I felt pretty good. But now even Abby thinks I went too far. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add because I keep seeing this and/or people were asking questions. 1. I warned Todd multiple times that if he proposed at my wedding, I would make him regret it. 2. In this scenario, Abby is my sister and Lucy is Todd's girlfriend. 3. During the father-daughter dance, there was a spotlight on Michelle and her dad with a camera on them that was recording live on a large screen for everyone to see. Todd pulled Lucy out and knelt down right in the eye line of the camera, and that's how everyone saw. 4. In specific situations, I can see an argument of Lucy being innocent, but she's not innocent overall. As stated previously, Lucy announced her own pregnancy at Abby's baby shower, so she likes to steal the attention too. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole and Todd is also an a-hole. Lucy and their kid are innocent. This is a cruel revenge. You could have done something that only hurts Todd. I agree with Abby that you went too far. What if Lucy was crazy and unalive Todd and herself and her baby? This stuff happens on the news very often. I'll give you their child, but Lucy is just as much an attention hog as Todd. She made Abby's baby shower all about her when she announced her own pregnancy. You could have done something less harmful but have the same effect on him, like hiring a bunch of granny strippers to show up at their wedding or something like that. I seriously doubt that that would have the same effect as what I did. Everyone sucks here. I really wanted to say not the a-hole, but this is a bit much, only because there's a kid involved and your brother isn't able to see it. It seems inevitable that at some point, you're going to have to come clean to help repair that relationship, and then Todd is going to seem like a total victim. And he and Lucy will be vindicated to keep acting entitled, which really sucks. I wonder if they're adult enough to sit down and have a proper discussion where everyone can apologize. Our parents have spent too many years making excuses for Todd for him to ever give a genuine apology. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to be a bridesmaid to my childhood best friend for being engaged to my ex? So Jane, 29 female, and I, 29 female, have known each other since we were in middle and high school together. She went to college in California while I went to college in Georgia. During college, Jane and I visited each other. She's younger than me, so I flew to LA for her 21st birthday and we always met up when we were home, etc. My junior year, I met Kyle, senior at the time. After he graduated, he moved to New York City for a job. While I was not intending on staying on the East Coast, I ended up also moving to New York City, partially to be with him. Then Kyle decided he wants a change of pace and wants to move to LA. We talked a lot about it. I asked if he could wait 6 months and move together since I just got promoted. He found a job and he moved to LA in May of that year instead of waiting. It's worth noting that Jane had moved to LA January of that year. I'm not sure at what point Jane and Kyle got together. They were already familiar with each other because of all the times Jane had visited and the times when I brought Kyle home. Kyle and I started fighting a lot more. I was stressed and frustrated. And that August, we broke up. Kyle and I kept talking and he decided he didn't like LA and was going to move back to New York City. Then COVID hits, and I find out that they may be together through friends. I asked Jane about it, and she said they were just hanging out a lot because he was still new and didn't have a lot of friends. Jane was constantly posting stories on Instagram and they looked too close to be just friends. So I didn't believe her. She kept saying they're just friends, and I unfollowed both of them on Instagram and neither of them said anything. Jane and I haven't really talked since everything happened. And now they're engaged. Jane asked me to be a bridesmaid and I said no. I felt it would be a little uncomfortable for me. I felt Kyle had been stringing me along while he was in LA and I feel awkward that they weren't honest about it from the beginning. But Jane is saying I can bring my current boyfriend as my +1 and Kyle agreed with her. Now she and my sister both think I'm overreacting and should just say yes. So am I the a-hole for saying no? Not the a-hole. It really sounds like he may have cheated on you with your best friend. At the very least, they got together soon after you two broke up. They kept the relationship from you and lied about it. This isn't an episode of Friends where everything can be hunky-dory. I don't know too many people that would be comfortable in this situation outside of a sitcom or rom-com movie. Yep, they want Opie there so they can pretend they did nothing wrong to everyone else. Not the a-hole. I think you are very correct. And her having to explain why you weren't there might make them uncomfortable, even for a little bit. Not the a-hole. Not only is it weird they both want you there after all that's happened, but to be a bridesmaid on top of it as well? If she is a bridesmaid, it means she's validated their relationship and forgiven them. They may not be fully conscious of it, but it might be a part of their reasoning. Some no harm, no foul mental gymnastics. Yep, it's all about the optics. They will likely pressure Opie more because she's saying no, and if she isn't there, they can't pretend she's okay with it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my dad to my wedding because he took back the money he promised? I want to be clear that this is not about money. I know no one owes us money, but he promised and it is about his reasoning. My fiancé and I are currently planning a wedding, and my mom got herself uninvited as we found out she had made some jokes behind our back about my fiancé's appearance/style, and saying she was never going to be anything more than a stay-at-home mom. I was furious and uninvited her. A couple of people told me I was being an a-hole as it was a one-time thing. She said not thinking it would get back to us. Also, she was tipsy, maybe a bit drunk. My dad, they aren't married, recently found out she wasn't going to be there and confronted me. He said what she said wasn't nice, but realistically, people talk crap and gossip, and I should give her the chance to apologize and move on. I explained that I can't let someone who feels that way come to our wedding, and he said I was being ridiculous. He said he was no longer going to pay for our wedding if I was going to treat my mom like that. I decided to uninvite him too, as I feel he's no longer a supportive person. My fiancé was privy to this conversation and is obviously hurt. She doesn't want him there either, so I feel the need to support her. But now my dad and his wife are telling everyone how we feel entitled to their money and how arrogant we are for uninviting everyone who disagrees with us. I feel slightly weird about it because obviously he doesn't have to pay for our wedding. Now for the top comments. I do think yours is a bit of an extreme reaction and definitely about the money. But I also have to wonder if your mom hasn't tried to apologize in between her crap talking and you finding that out. Part of me believes that if she really wanted to make it up and actually felt guilty, she would have already done that. So everyone sucks here, I guess. She apologized, but it was a crappy apology. She was like, I shouldn't have said that, so sorry. But don't be a baby because we all know she makes fun of me as well. Does she? Yes, to be honest. But at least she has the sense not to do it in a crowd where it is going to get back to my mom. Newsflash, if your mom knows, it's getting back to her. You're the a-hole for taking such extreme action every time a guest does anything remotely wrong surrounding your wedding. Yes, it's your wedding and you can invite and disinvite whoever you want. And yes, standing up for your fiancé is the right thing to do. However, at least from the way you wrote this, it seems you don't have any kind of conversations with people before deciding they're out. And not just any person, but your mother and father. You're like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. You just stand there and go, no more wedding for you. Next. It's quite immature. Your mother shouldn't have spoken ill about your fiancé. But is she willing to apologize? Is she remorseful? Edit, mother-in-law did apologize. Unless she has a history of being mean to you/your fiancé, I think making her miss her child's wedding for a one-off comment is extreme. Edit. It turns out it's the other way around, and the fiancé has a history of talking crap about mother-in-law behind her back. LMAO. Your father shouldn't have held money over your head. But the funny thing is that he is doing for your mother the same thing you're doing for your fiancé, even though they aren't married. He is reacting extremely to you wronging her and going nuclear with no more wedding money for you. You and your fiancé sound very immature. And while standing up for her is right, you have to be careful to analyze if this isn't her subtly isolating you from your family. Edit, I'm now more sure than ever that fiancé is using this wedding for a power move at isolating Opie from his parents. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my fiancé a trigger-happy loon and threatening to cancel our wedding? Me, 27 male, and my fiancée Lizzie, 27 female, are finally getting to planning our wedding after putting it off for an entire year. And I'm not kidding when I say this. It has been a nightmare. Lizzie has gone full-on bridezilla. I get that wedding planning is hard as I'm literally doing it, but she has legitimately gone off the freaking rails. She's been snapping at family members, threatening to uninvite them at every turn. The other day, my parents called me and told me that Lizzie had uninvited them from the wedding. And of course, I was freaking angry. She didn't even have the gall to tell me herself. Was she just thinking I wouldn't find out? Oh, and you want to know why she uninvited them? They didn't like the flowers she picked. And I say she picked, because she didn't tell me about that either. I confronted her yesterday, asking her why she tried to uninvite my parents, and we got into a huge argument over it, with her yelling at me asking why I was still supporting my parents after they showed such disrespect towards her. I asked her why the hell she has been making all of these decisions without even consulting me first, and she said that it was her wedding, so she should be able to make all the decisions. We have never had a fight like this before. I was at my wit's end, especially after she called me a controlling piece of crap. So I snapped and called her a trigger-happy loon. And if she wanted a wedding all about her, she could marry herself, because I was so freaking done. She stormed out of the house, insulting me with every step. She got in the car and drove to her parents' house, and she's been there since the fight. I called my sister sobbing and told her what had happened. She agrees that Lizzie was way out of line, but that we should try reconciling. Lizzie refuses to speak to me until she gets an apology. But I don't think I'm in the wrong. It's my wedding too. But she acts like I'm just a decorative piece of her special day. But I'm really starting to feel horrible. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I know a running joke on Reddit is instantly giving the advice you should break up. But if this were me, I'd be thankful this side of her was exposed before we said I do. And I'd run very far away from this pile of red flags in the shape of a human woman. Exactly. Not the a-hole. You should thank the heavens you got to see the side of her before the wedding. Trust me, it'll only get worse. Think about major life events and how she'll act if she's acting like this during your wedding. She is a nightmare and will continue to be a nightmare. Think about how you want the rest of your life to play out and make the best decision for yourself. You've received a blessing in the shape of a bridezilla. This, buddy, in real life, every bride I've ever known who has gone bridezilla has made the entire marriage about them. Their wants, their desires, their dreams. You'll be but a player in her narcissistic bubble. A wedding is about both of you and should reflect both of you. People shouldn't be uninvited unless it's for some pretty significant reasons like abuse, not just because they have a difference of opinion from the bride. She disrespected you and your entire family by uninviting your parents. Over flowers. Over flowers you didn't get to have an opinion on. Trust me when I say that she is showing who she truly is. She has a lot of growing up to do and needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her before a wedding should even be discussed. Honestly, put the brakes on the wedding. Postpone it while you figure out what you want, and insist on real couples counseling from a real marriage and family therapist before setting a new date, to ensure the big glaring issues are resolved before committing one more date to someone dropping with selfishness. I fully agree. We internet strangers cannot tell you, OP, if your relationship is worth saving. But for sure you need to put the wedding planning on pause until things cool down. The question is, why is your fiancé behaving this way? Blaming the bridezilla is easy, but it'd be useful for you to understand where her behavior comes from. Is she afraid? And being 100% in control is the coping strategy she opted for. Does she feel social pressure to have the perfect wedding and she's actually overwhelmed? Or is she simply a witch and you now only found out? Only you can tell, OP. Not the a-hole. Run. I ask her why the hell she has been making all of these decisions without even consulting me first. She said that it was her wedding, so she should be able to make all the decisions. Run far, far away. Stop threatening to cancel the wedding, and just cancel it. Save yourself the divorce, and the ramification of potentially having children with this person. Lol, if it's her wedding and only hers, who is she marrying?
My son stood up his mom like she did years ago. I had my son with my then girlfriend just after high school. We got married at just 18 and 20. Christian parents. From the moment he was born, I loved him. But my ex thought otherwise. Should blame him for ruining her life, leading her to mentally and verbally mistreat my boy up till we divorced. It was a clean break, as she left with her new rich boyfriend saying if her future was ruined, her new rich boyfriend can help her live the life she wanted. My son is such an angel. He always thought it was his fault and tried to do his best to be the best son for me, leading him to be very easily influenced by others' criticisms and stuff. Since his classmates' moms treat their kids right, everyone's hero is their mother. Even after all the abuse she put him through, he still wanted to visit her. His normal bad parenting, making plans she couldn't attend to. I'd understand if it's once or twice, but all the times? Not even once? Not even a freaking weekend or even a few hours. He basically had no maternal figure in his life, and this made him have trust issues and became really quiet. But thank goodness for therapy, he got much better. The gym became a stress reliever, and now he's a strong, intelligent senior in school. He's the perfect child. It's only about 6 months ago he got texts from his mother asking to meet him. For a week straight, he was so happy, and reasonably happy to meet someone who had hurt him so bad at such a young age, but it was not my place to tell him who he should meet. The day he was supposed to meet her at a coffee shop to catch up, my son got a call from his mom asking where is he. Sorry, something came up at work, can't meet today, before hanging up. For 6 months, whenever they made plans, he was a no-show. I wasn't aware of any of this, but my ex called to tell me about my son's behavior, saying he's acting out of line and should be disciplined. I'm sorry, but when she was explaining, I just straight up started cracking up. I told her that he's doing what she did to him years ago, and I will not be disciplining him for something she indirectly taught him. I feel bad for her, but is my son really that wrong to no-show his mom? My son did want a relationship, but decided against when she accidentally let it slip that she wanted money. It was over a phone call, so I have no evidence that that's what she wants. But knowing her, it sounds exactly like what you do. I believe she married me not only because of her parents, but also the fact that my parents did own quite a big business in my home country that made them somewhat wealthy. She started getting quite irritable when I wanted to not take over the business. Their business is buying and selling stocks or whatever. My current career is a chemist. Another thing I saw was that my son was quite petty in this revenge. Of course, there's a lot of hatred and resentment towards his mom. Not for her abuse, but the fact that she contacted him for money. My son works as a freelancer in my parents' business, just some admin work. She knows that if she called me, I would have straight up said no. Now for the top comments. Nah, good on him. She has no right to demand that your son get disciplined when she clearly didn't care about him until now. She literally mentally and verbally mistreated him when he was younger, and now she expects him to just forget everything? Good on him for giving her a taste of her own medicine. Good for him. It might be worth sitting down and saying, as your dad who is supposed to teach you respect and kindness, that's mean. But as your dad who is supposed to teach you to stand up for yourself and solve problems creatively, I'm so damn proud of you. What you did may have not been right, but it sure as heck wasn't wrong. I mean, it's funny, but it's also still clear your son is holding on to a ton of anger and resentment against her. Please make sure he stays in therapy. The gym can't be his only outlet for stuff like this. It's just not enough for issues this significant. It's also still clear your son is holding on to a ton of anger and resentment against her. I wouldn't let this take control of my life, but no chance in hell I would ever forget or forgive this. I would spare only the apathy and rejection she has shown, no more no less. This kid owes nothing to their genetic donor. Next story. My niece was the reason my marriage fell apart, and now she's completely a narcissist like her mother anyhow. This is long, so let me apologize in advance, but I need to say the things I keep bottled up inside me somewhere anywhere. About 7 years ago, my ex-husband and I had a decent marriage. It wasn't perfect, but marriage rarely is. Our kids were well-behaved. We both worked, and we had our kids in activities outside of school to keep them healthy and active. We had one blimp, where intimacy had died off for about a year, but we had talked and took an adult-only vacation and sparked that back too. My sister had moved a few years prior, about 6 hours away from the family. She uprooted her kids because she needed a change after her divorce. The problem was, she basically began to act like a teenager, staying out all night partying or drinking, and made her oldest child care for the younger two, as well as her new friends' children too. Summer vacation approached that year, and my mom asked me to go pick up my nieces and nephew for a month-long visit. We arranged for the oldest to stay with me, and the younger to stay with my mother so that the oldest would get a break. When I arrived to pick them up, my sister told me her oldest did not want to come, but she was forcing her to. For the first 2 weeks, my niece cried every day. I finally approached her and told her I was sorry she didn't want to be here, but she cried harder and told me she wasn't crying because she didn't want to be here. She was crying because she didn't want to go home. My husband and I spoke about her moving in with us at 18, but she told me if she returned home, she wouldn't live to see 18. He was very against taking her in. Not because he didn't love her, but because it was a financial burden to our family, and a fight with my family if we did. But I believed my niece's threats and I fought. First him, then my sister and my mom. We ended up keeping my niece through tons of fights. We got very little to no help financially or emotionally, but we did the best we could by her. But it was a crack, like the kind you get in your windshield and it just keeps getting bigger every time something small hits it. My niece got pregnant as a teen, just like her mother. The crack grew. My husband and I fought about money. The crack grew more. By the time my niece moved out at 17 and back in and out again, the windshield was beyond repair. My now ex and I recently divorced, and while my niece isn't the only reason, she's absolutely the reason the windshield got weakened enough to break. Now, she's 21 and she treats me as disposable. She only calls on me when she wants something from me and often ignores my calls and texts. She told me she thought I had a perfect family and that she regretted moving in with us because she was wrong. Never once thinking she was what changed the dynamic so much. To say that it hurts my feelings is an understatement. My ex and I are building a friendship again and I'm thankful for him. My birthday just passed and not one member of my family acknowledged it, outside of my kids. But my ex and his stepmom both did and I'm very grateful for them. It's hard when you hear blood is thicker than water over and over, only to realize blood family sometimes isn't healthy for you. But I'm learning. Edit. Since I see this recurring in the comments, let me say that both me and my ex-husband did everything to make my niece feel welcome and safe. We had her in therapy. When she told me she was having sex, it took her to get her on a pill. We taught her to drive and took her to soccer practice and drama club and everything else she asked to join. I don't blame my niece fully. 1, she was a child. 2, I made my choices. I could have said no. My ex-husband did say he didn't want to take her in until she was 18, but he also helped me when I begged to do it. I believe I'm allowed to be frustrated at my niece for her parts. And no, I would absolutely never say any of this to her, because you just do not do that to kids. Thus, this rant post on Reddit is to get out some of my negative feelings. Trust me, I own my own faults. But that's a whole different post to make. Cut your niece off. Stop enabling her. She made her decisions. It's not your responsibility anymore at all. I would start by telling him that he was right. Thank you. I'm working on cutting out people part. My ex and I get along well now that divorce dust has settled, and I have apologized to him many times now for the decisions I have made and the things I've done. We may never be a couple again, but I believe we will always be friends, and that's pretty good too. Good for you and your ex, and for your kids for having mature parents. Like others have told you, both you and your ex need to free yourselves from the burden of helping your niece. Any responsibility you may have once had is gone now that she is an adult. You and your branch of the family don't need to deal with the poison of the other branch. On the flip side, if you had turned her niece away and niece did end up ending herself, your marriage would have been over as well, and you and your ex might not be friends. How are you gonna call them narcissistic when you legit made a whole situation about you? You forced your husband to take her in. Did you do any type of therapy with her? Or did you just take her in and go, damn, look at me, I'm such a good person? Therapy, sports, drama club, we taught her to drive and helped her every step of the way. We tried our best to treat her as our own, and that includes my ex-husband. While he didn't love the situation, he tried to be the best father figure to her he could be. You'd have to ask her if she felt resentment from him, because it's obvious that he didn't want to do this from the get-go. I also wouldn't be shocked if you spilled some of the rage you feel for her in this post into her daily life as well. In the end, you picked up a traumatized/abused child. It really shouldn't upset you that much that she ended the way that she has. Her early years weren't the best, and that stuff legit will affect your entire life. Especially to a point where you blame her for your marriage falling apart. Last story. My brother will never move out of my parents' house, and I seem to be the only one who sees why. I just have to vent this somewhere. I don't really have anyone to talk to about it who would understand, and I literally don't have time for therapy. I, 31 female, have a brother, 28 male, who lives in my parents' basement and will never leave. He hasn't had a steady job in years. He can't get a girl to date him, and of course he blames feminism for this. My mom literally cleans up after him. Like homeboy can't even be bothered to bring his dirty dishes to the kitchen. My mom goes to his room and gets them for him. She pays him to help her around the house. Both of my parents make endless excuses for him. And I really don't know why, because all he does is whine and complain and generally acts like a jerk to them. My parents claim that they raised my brother and I exactly the same. They claim to have been blindsided by my brother's basement-dwelling fate, but I call this exact scenario over 20 years ago. Growing up, my brother would get rewarded for doing the most simple tasks. My mother was never short of praise for anything my brother did. I remember he would get allowance money every weekend for doing hardly any chores. I, on the other hand, could hardly have a weekend to myself, plus without my mother scolding me for not doing something, not doing it well enough, not doing it long enough, etc. If it wasn't house chores, it was extracurricular activities, which I was doing to the point of exhaustion. No matter how much I did, it seemed like it just wasn't enough. The thing is, I really wasn't a bad kid in general. I never had any disciplinary issues in school. But as soon as I came home, you would have thought I was Satan himself from the number of restrictions put on me. My mom was constantly going through my things and she never did this with my brother. So on top of never having time for myself to just goof off and be a kid, I never had privacy. I started hiding my diary in a hole in the dry wall of my closet because my mom openly admitted to reading it. I became highly introverted and guarded, and I barely made any friends in school. My brother, it seemed, was given the free rein to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted with no consequence. In hindsight, I think my parents were being sexist in how they raised us. But at the same time, I just thought my parents, especially my mom since she was our primary caregiver, were plain dumb to be always giving so much praise to my brother when he did so little to earn any of it. I really started to resent both my parents and my brother in middle school, and I was pretty open about my frustrations. Of course, they blamed hormones and teen angst, but at 31, those feelings haven't gone away. I've just gotten better at disguising them for the sake of protecting my parents' feelings. I started devising a plan to move out pretty early, even trying to run away a few times. There was a point where my parents were deflating my bike tires every weekend and hiding the pump. I managed to get out pretty much the minute I turned 18 and moved into my own apartment several states away. Because of the way I was raised, I can't stand having anyone control me or my life, and I'm very sensitive about who is in my space and for how long. In addition to living alone, most of my adult life, I've always been self-employed since moving out of my parents' house, so I had to hustle really hard to maintain this lifestyle. And yeah, that meant doing some morally questionable activities, but I don't regret it because I never had to move back in with my parents, and I've always been in control of myself. The only time I wasn't was when I was married to my abusive ex, and what really sealed the deal in leaving that guy was how much he reminded me of living with my parents. Nowadays, I'm working as a full-time freelance artist, and I actually get really high-end gigs and make pretty decent money. My parents have a bizarre relationship with my success. They seem to want to take credit for it in some ways, which I guess they should because it was how much I hated being around them and hated having someone telling me what to do that motivated me to choose this career path and get good at it. On the other hand though, they can't talk about any of my accomplishments with the rest of my family because it makes my brother wildly jealous. My brother, who I should mention does have time for therapy and supposedly goes, blames his inability to get out of the house on me. And my resentment of him while we were growing up, he says I traumatized him. My parents tell me that it's his trauma that I caused that has him unable to function in the world and move out of the house. And since I'm apparently the source of this trauma, anytime I'm at my parents' house, my brother makes a point to avoid me. The last time I was there, while I was hanging out with my mom, her phone was going off every second with a text from my brother complaining that I was there visiting. Everything I did while visiting my parents had to be carefully choreographed around my brother, and he still wouldn't stop complaining. I'm basically a second-class citizen in my parents' house every time I visit, because his needs must always come first. At this point, I don't even know what to tell my parents. It's obvious to everyone around them that they're enabling my brother to be a perpetual child, but my mom has a never-ending list of excuses for why she can't kick him out. And how he's just about to get into the field he's always wanted to be in. He just needs a little more time to get on his feet, blah blah blah. And of course, it's all my fault, because I was the difficult child, and he wasn't. I feel like I've been sabotaged out of ever really having a loving and supportive family because they're too busy cuddling my brother. Anyways, thanks for reading my rant. I feel better now. Is your name Shannon, perchance? I have a pair of cousins just like you. Sister is incredibly hardworking. Graduated college early, got a master's, bought her own place at 31, has always had a minimum of 2 jobs. Her younger brother is 36, dropped out of school, never had a job or a girlfriend, and lives in his parents' cottage smoking weed all day. Yet, for some reason, every time you talk to them, it's Rob this and Rob that and Rob starting a surfboard making business. He isn't. They've coddled him into being a bum and acts like everyone doesn't know it. It's bizarre, and just once I'd like to interrupt one of their monologues about all the great stuff their son is up to and tell them he's a freaking burnout bum, and anyone with eyes could see it. No, it isn't, but I feel your pain, Shannon. I actually think your parents did you a favor by being strict unknowingly. The way they coddled your brother has made him not be able to function in society. Your parents will and are growing old, and it will reach a time when they themselves will need someone to take care of them. Do you think your brother will?